This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
We're going to talk about the breaking news that just kind of broke a few minutes before I started to make this video, is that the Browns are hiring Deuce Staley as their running backs coach for next year. Now, Deuce Staley was a highly sought after running backs coach candidate. His resume reads as such. Obviously, he was a very good football player when he was in the league, had almost a 10-year career at the running back position, notable stints with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then as a coach, he was there with the Eagles as a special teams quality control coach. And then he's an assistant head coach for the Eagles from 2018 to 2020. And then he went to the Detroit Lions with Dan Campbell, was an assistant head coach and running backs coach for 2 years over there, and then went to Carolina to be a running backs coach. It was down to Deuce Staley going to either the Browns or the Jets. It sounded like the Browns were the team that wanted him more. They ended up getting him. Deuce Staley will be the running back coach here in Cleveland. Again, has a good resume, good reputation. I'm always for former players being added to this staff, right? What the Browns like to do, it's not an approach where you're going to get a ton of locker room perspective in the decision-making process, right? Like that was one of the things I wanted to make sure that they took care of last year, and they did a good job of that by, putting in Bubba Ventrone as one of the lead coordinators of this team. So, Deuce Staley, I think that's another step in the right direction. A respected running back, also, somebody who's been in the league, who some of these guys who are playing right now, I don't know how many, because he last played in 2006, and you got to be like 28, 29 to remember Deuce Staley as a player, and not a lot of running backs out here kicking it at 28 and 29, but maybe like Nick Chubb knows. But, he's familiar enough, recent enough to where he has some of that relevant player experience for sure. I think this is a good hire. Now, there is one question with the Browns, not only just hiring Deuce Staley, but they also hired a tight ends coach a couple days ago. And a lot of people were asking in that video, hey, Quincy, why are the Browns hiring position coaches before they hired the coordinator? And I think this goes to how I believe some people misinterpreted what the offensive situation was when they made the move from Alex Van Pelt. I think a lot of people either wanted to believe or assumed that Alex Van Pelt being removed as the offensive coordinator for whatever reason, whether it be him stepping down or Kevin getting rid of him, I believe it leans towards AVP stepping down. That did not mean that Kevin wasn't in charge of the offense anymore. Kevin's still in charge of the offense. They're not trying to run a different offense or a completely new offense and just hire like a coordinator out of left field who's completely different than what the Browns have wanted to do. They still want to retain their identity. They just want to expand their comfort zone. And when you look at what the Browns have done through that lens, a lot of these decisions start to make sense. If you're trying to expand your comfort zone, and you know that your offensive coordinator's comfort zone is the same comfort zone that you have as the head coach of this team on the offensive side of the ball, especially, then you should probably make a change if you make a decision to expand it. Because something tells me if two people, like if I'm real comfortable making soul food and my partner is real comfortable making soul food, when it comes time for us to expand our horizons, expand our comfort zone when it comes to cooking, we're going to be two blind people trying to lead each other and trying to teach each other how to cook like Mexican food or something like that, right? Like you probably need to get somebody in there who has some experience doing something else than what you're comfortable with. And that was just a situation with Alex Van Pelt. I don't think this was an indictment on the job that AVP did. I don't think it was an indictment on anything as far as coaching ability goes. I just think it was the direction that they wanted to go in was a little different. I don't think anybody got let go of because they were a bad coach. TC wasn't a bad coach. I don't think that Stump Mitchell is a bad coach. I don't think that Alex Van Pelt is a bad coach. I think they're all fine coaches, but this isn't about if you're a good coach or not. This is about we're going to change some things on this offense. We're going to expand our comfort zone. And are you a good fit in the role that you're in for us to achieve that? And in order to do that, you got to make some tough decisions. And the Browns have made some tough decisions. And I think these decisions, much like the tough decisions that they had to make on the defensive side of the ball, will pay dividends for them on the offensive side of the ball, because we can ignore it as much as we want. We can act like it's just one person's fault why it hasn't blown up the way that we want it to. But there clearly was an issue with the offense for most of the year where it just wasn't explosive. And it wasn't even just the passing attack. Honestly, it was the running game that was a lot more concerning. It wasn't creative enough. It wasn't flexible enough. It wasn't versatile enough. It wasn't a run game that can withstand things being taken away from it. Like, again, we remember I had to say this all year. In order for the Browns run game to work, it required literally everything to go perfectly. And when that's the case, you're just never going to have consistency. And I think they saw how difficult offense was for them at times. They saw what other teams were doing. And shout out to Cole, because I think he and Curtis pointed this out to me on Q and Cole, where they said, hey, look at the teams that the Browns struggled with on the defensive side of the ball. You have the Indianapolis Colts gave us trouble, a lot of motion, a lot of the new stuff that the teams are doing, the jet motion, the orbit motion, all of that stuff. And the Browns weren't ready for it. Then you have Seattle, who was doing a lot of that same stuff. He did a good enough job against Kyle Shanahan. But then you played the LA Rams, Sean McVay, like all of these teams the Browns had issues with, the Texans, because they just could not get ahead of the curve enough on offense to stay ahead of those teams that were at the curve or ahead of the curve offensively. And you saw it even affect the defense because they didn't know how to defend these concepts, or at least weren't as confident in defending these concepts, because in practice, they're not going up against it a ton, right? Like one of the Browns' best defensive performances, I don't think it's a surprise, was against Kyle Shanahan, right? And Kyle Shanahan notably changed up the offense a little bit after those stretch of 3 games where he lost in a row this year. So I really do think that the Browns saw that and said, hey, we're not only hurting ourselves offensively, we're not helping ourselves defensively. Now, again, just because I'm pointing out flaws and things that I feel like need to be fixed or tightened on this team, that doesn't mean what they accomplished this year, it was a failure. It doesn't mean that the team is in dire strait or dire positions. Like I feel like it's almost impossible at times to just talk about the team in the state that it exists in, because everybody wants to run to one extreme or the other with every little move. It's either the roof is on fire or everything's fine. Don't question a single thing. Like there is room for things to be relatively fine, but for you to be like, we would like to improve this. We would like to get better. You know, that's what good teams usually do. And I know it's a rough transition period, but it seems like this constant period of the Browns doing things that other successful teams do. But since we're the Browns, we get criticized for it. So that's my little rant on that. But the Browns hired Staley. I think that is a tremendous hire for the Cleveland Browns. I'm always excited to add former players here. It stinks that Stump Mitchell couldn't be along for the ride. We're going to talk about the interview that he had with Cam Justice tomorrow. But Deuce Staley, if you had to replace Stump Mitchell with anybody, boys, Deuce Staley, somebody you can add in there. He's a high energy dude. He's probably going to be good for that locker room. Maybe they feel like a change of voice is necessary to develop some of these running backs even further. Or maybe they feel like Deuce is going to be the guy who figures it out with that position. Maybe you get some new guys in there. Maybe he just takes advantage of what he has already had on this running back roster. But that's going to be Deuce Staley's role. He's the new running backs coach. And for those of you who are wondering why the Browns are hiring position coaches, it's because Kev's still in charge of this offense. It's not going to be Kev's handing over the keys to the offense entirely. And I don't think that should be the case, because I think Kev's a really good offensive mind. I just think he needed to get out of his comfort zone a little bit and hire some people in leadership that are going to help him get out of his comfort zone more so than the guy like Alex Van Pelt, whose comfort zone is the same exact thing that Kevin Stefanski likes to run, right? Like, I think this is about just getting out of this comfort zone, right? There's a reason why they ran RPO for one game and never went back to it, because this staff, a lot of people on this staff just weren't comfortable doing the RPO stuff for whatever reason. And I think Kev identified that as an issue. If we're going to move into the 2024, 2025 of things, and hopefully into the 2030s of things, you're going to have to do what these teams are doing offensively in order to stay ahead of the curve. And these are moves that you have to make. Every team fires coordinators that keeps their coach for a while, right? We just saw the Baltimore Ravens fired their defensive coordinator and then fired their offensive coordinator the year after. It doesn't necessarily mean somebody's on the hot seat. It just means that they're trying to make adjustments. And you know what? The Baltimore Ravens were damn right to make those adjustments, because they had a good defense with Wink Martindale. They get rid of Wink Martindale. They trade for some defensive players, Roquan Smith, and then they get TJ McDonald. And now all of a sudden they go from a pretty damn good defense to one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL. And that's not the only adjustment they made, right? They had a good offense in Baltimore. Greg Roman's offenses weren't terrible. They weren't close to the bottom of the league in any metric. You can make the excuse to stick with that Greg Roman offense, but they wanted more out of Lamar Jackson. They paid him all that money. They wanted more out of Lamar Jackson. So they hire Todd Monken. Next thing you know, Lamar's about to get his second MVP. These are tighten the screws moves for the Browns. They're trying to get where Baltimore is at. And how Baltimore got to where they're at is by not being complacent with okay coordinator stuff, or maybe not even just bad coaching or okay coaching. It was just, hey, we want to do something different. We want to evolve. We want to take a step forward. And I don't think that Greg Roman's going to take that step forward. So we need to do it with somebody else. Or I don't think that Wink Martindale, he's too comfortable with that old stuff. We need to go get somebody new, like a TJ McDonald, to get some fresh ideas into this defense. And you tighten the screws and you strive to get better. And the Browns are doing what you want a team like the Cleveland Browns to do, because a lot of times this team could have sat back. We won 11 games. We chilling, right? We ain't doing nothing. We just going to wait for everybody to get healthy. We're not going to do shit in the offseason. And we just going to be like, hey, we're going to run it back and be better. And then what happens? Disappointment. We've seen that with the Browns before. So I am happy that they're taking a different approach, that they're not just sitting back and hoping things go well, that they're like, no, we want to get better on offense. We're going to do everything possible to get better on offense. Even if we weren't bad on offense the year before, even if we feel like we got some good offensive minds, we want to get out of our comfort zone. We want to expand what we do. We want to get the most out of Deshaun Watson. And then whoever is the quarterback after Deshaun Watson, we want to have these things in place. Well, these are the moves you got to make. Everything, I feel like we've been so used to the Browns being just such a failure of an organization that every single move that the Browns do. Whenever they fire a coordinator, we look at it in the worst possible lens, even though we're fans of the team, because that's what we're used to doing. Oh, the Browns fire an offensive coordinator, that means the coach is going to be gone, because that's usually the context in which it happens. But that's not the context for what's going on with the Cleveland Browns. They're trying to improve on a already good team, a team that was able to win 11 games with 26% of the salary cap on IR. But they're using that as no excuse. They're saying, no, we can get better. We can get better. And you know what? That should make you feel damn good if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, that this team is trying to get better. They're not sitting by fat and happy with 11-6. They're not sitting by fat and happy with the wild card run. They're not sitting by fat and happy with the defensive player of the year, with a 2-time coach of the year. They're not sitting by fat and happy about none of that. They're working on getting better right now. That is the type of sense of urgency we've never seen from this organization. And that is exactly why I feel so much better about this season just a couple weeks after the season ended in Houston in a very ugly way, because of how they're taking care of business. This seems like a team that's locked in. They know what they have in front of them. They know what they can achieve. They're locked in and they're going after it, and they're going to try to improve this offense and get the most out of every single piece that they have to put on that chessboard. But that's my thoughts. Deuce Staley, the new running back coach. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.